How we doing, people? Hope you're well. Big up to everybody for being here. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I hope that you've all had a fantastic day. I hope you've been recovering from hangovers, those of you that did go out last night and watch the England game. And I hope that all of you have recovered from what is a very disappointing result. If you haven't checked out this morning's stream about all the coverage of England, Spain, and also the coverage for transfers, then please make sure that you do click on that one. And apologies, we were supposed to be doing a stream tonight at 7 p.m, but Northside's not about until Wednesday now. So we're going to put it forward until then. So me and Northside will be back on Wednesday night for that show. So I thought I'd do one tonight looking at Arsenal news because there has been some this evening. We're going to be talking about Emile Smith Rowe. We're going to be talking about Mikel Merino. We're going to be talking a little bit about Calafiori as well. And we're going to be talking about what has and hasn't been done in the world of Arsenal, what we think might happen in terms of positions. So just to give you guys a little bit of an update and keep you up to date with all things Arsenal. So big up to everybody in the chat. Big up for Dan. Big up to Steve. Big up to Mum. Big up to, who else have we got here? Ash as well. Absolute legends. All of you. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. And make sure you check out the show earlier. Now, there has been some news tonight. And it is news on a player that we all know and love very, very much so. And it is, of course, Emile Smith Rowe. Arsenal have rejected Fulham and Crystal Palace bids for the English midfielder. Now, it doesn't go on to say how much that the fees were. It doesn't look at how much the first kind of bids were, but we knew there was going to be bids coming our way for the following players: Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, and of course, Emile Smith Rowe. Now, Emile Smith Rowe, out of all of the players, is the one that I probably do not 100% have set to leave Arsenal. If there was one I had to keep, it would be Emile Smith Rowe. Maybe there's a little bit of sentimental value in it, but I actually think he's the best out of the ones that we have got. I think Emile Smith Rowe can play in a number of positions. I think he's versatile. I do think he's got potential. I think he's only 23 or 24 years old now, so it's not like he's growing into the late 30s. We're trying to find a position for him still. When he was the age now of, 18, 19 when he broke through, I thought he had unbelievable potential. And for me, looks like he had as much potential as somebody like a Jack Grealish when he was coming through at that age. And in fact, I'll say it now, I think he was better than when Jack Grealish was at that age. Unfortunately, injuries have taken its toll, and he's just not been able to get regular first-team football in the last couple of years. That doesn't mean that we should be like, he's dusted, let's get rid of him. What I think it means is that we could sell him, but only for the right price. If people are going to start putting in £20 million, we're not going to be selling him for that. So I imagine that Fulham and Palace both started off at around 15 or 20 million. Now, I don't blame them for doing that, but Arsenal are just going to knock that back and reject it, right? That's not going to happen. No one's going to be tempted by, £20 million for Smith Rowe, 23, bid an England international. He was on the brinks of getting called up by Gareth Southgate not too long ago, to be fair, when he was flying at Arsenal. And there was a time where the Saka and Emile Smith Rowe song was being boomed and out over at the Emirates pretty much weekly. That's how good the pair of them were. And I kind of miss Smith Rowe and Saka playing together in the Arsenal setup. I kind of miss Smith Rowe being on the same side as Bukayo Saka, because I felt like when he was more in the middle, centrally, the performances were pretty good when Saka and Smith Rowe were on the same side, whether it be Saka on the left and Smith Rowe in the middle, or whether it be Saka on the right and Smith Rowe in the middle. I thought it was quite good at link-up play. But we're going back a few years now. It hasn't been like that for a while. When Smith Rowe was regularly playing for Arsenal, we were going for a Champions League place. And since the last couple of years where we've moved towards a title, he hasn't really got the regular game time he's deserved. Now, I can think of a number of opportunities Smith Rowe's had, some of which he hasn't really made a massive difference, some of which he really has. Now, he started to play, if you remember, some of the League Cup games, and it wasn't really getting him to the swing of things. Back then, he was actually still trying to nurse his injury and come back into the full fitness of the side. But towards the back end of the season, he played Luton at home, and he was one of our best players. I think he actually got player of the match. He was very, very effective. And then against Everton, when he came on, I thought he looked very, very sharp. And there was a couple of games where he was making some cameo appearances, and I thought, this looks like the old Smith Rowe. There's something about his game that looks a lot sharper. He looks fitter. He looks to be enjoying himself. He looks to be expressing himself more. You know, when Smith Rowe used to just do that turn on the ball and just drive. That was where I enjoyed the times watching Smith Rowe at his best playing for Arsenal. Now, it might be that Emile Smith Rowe has moved on from Arsenal. And what I mean by that is not him wanting to leave. It might be the club has moved on from Smith Rowe, that we needed him to get us across the lines for Champions League football, but we need somebody better or different that can get us across the line for a title. Now, I actually think Smith Rowe could be a squad player for Arsenal quite comfortably. And if that had to be my decision, I'd keep him and I'd sell Fabio Vieira. But it doesn't look like anybody's coming in for Fabio Vieira. Now, when Arsenal are trying to get players in themselves, they're going to be looking at how they're going to sell and who they're going to sell. And if there are bids coming in for Eddie Nketiah, Emile Smith Rowe, Reece Nelson, they're going to look and consider them. Personally, for me, I feel like Emile Smith Rowe should be worth anything higher than 35 to 40 million pounds, because I look around the market and that is pretty much what we're expecting to see young English talent go for. Now, you can say that potentially we could actually go for more, but I will say that I think Emile Smith Rowe is a player who's probably worth right now 35 million pounds. If we got that and above, I think we'll probably look to accept it. But the reports from Sky Sports News have suggested that Palace and Fulham are interested. Now, I can see why they're interested. They're two London clubs. They both need that kind of ilk of player. Fulham have lost some players this summer. They want to try and add some quality. Paulinho has gone. Tosin has gone. Crystal Palace look to be losing both Guehi and potentially Eze after losing Elise, and Adam Wharton is getting a lot of interest from players as well, from clubs as well. So they're going to want to add the quality as well. I know for a fact they were sniffing around Reece Nelson, and they're obviously looking at Emile Smith Rowe as well. So I can totally understand why teams are looking at Emile Smith Rowe. That's not the question. The question is, how much is he going to go for? Now, if you look at the tweet that I saw from News Now Arsenal, it says that Fulham have made their intent pretty clear that they want to sign Emile Smith Rowe this summer. The 23-year-old is Marco Silva's number one target, and Fulham are suggesting that they would be willing to go as high as 40 million to sign him this summer. That's come from the Mail Sport. Now, that to me would be about right for where we believe he's probably what he's probably worth. I think Emile Smith Rowe for 40 million pounds would be a good deal for Arsenal to sell. I don't think it's one that I'd be excited to get rid of, but it's certainly 40 million pounds we can put towards a player that we feel we need. And with Emile Smith Rowe going, it's not like, oh my God, we now need to try and look at how replacing two players. I think if we was to be clever with this, we could probably try to incorporate one of the clubs that are interested in some form of swap deal. Now, if we do want the money, you take the money. If it's Fulham that are interested or it's Palace that are interested, maybe we try and do a little bit of a deal with Eze on this one. Maybe we say, look, you want Smith Rowe, we want Eze. We'll give you X amount and this player. And that's what I think might happen. Now, I don't think we'd be far off. I think we'd probably get Eze if we was to offer 20 million and Smith Rowe. But there is a release clause, so it might be easier to actually just release that clause. Fulham, is there a player at Fulham that we want? Well, I would have probably looked at debating whether Paulinho was worth going, but otherwise, I don't know that there's a player there. So I think that we might be able to just get the money for Smith Rowe if Fulham were the ones to go for it. Now, Palace, they're obviously serious because we've rejected a bid, but what was the bid? I imagine it's in the region of 20 million pounds. That's just the start. They're going to go up 25, potentially 30. Then they've got to make a decision. When you hit 30 million, it's still getting rejected. What do? Do they pull out and try and look at other targets, or do they go that extra mile? And if Fulham are saying or suggesting that they're willing to go up to 40 million, I think we'll probably get 40 million, if I'm honest. Now, I would be gutted to see him go. I think he'd do very well in the Fulham side, I must say. I think he's got potential to play on the wing, left wing, right wing, or, of course, the number 10. He's a player that I've always admired. He's a player I've always watched and thought very highly of. He's a player I've always enjoyed watching and thought that he could potentially go on to be a player who secures a place in the first team. But injuries is not allowed for that. Now, I think personally, whatever happens, Emile Smith Rowe has this season and this season only to prove to Arsenal that he can stay fit. And if he's going to be somewhere elsewhere, he's got to try and do that to that club. So if it is Fulham that he goes to, he's got to prove to Fulham that he can stay fit and he can be a part of their squad. Now, that's going to be difficult when you have the last couple of years, which is probably moving on to 2.5 years now with Smith Rowe, where he's been pretty much injured for a lot of it. Now, this season, he wasn't injured a lot, but he couldn't get a run of games. Now, some of that was quality of Ødegaard and other players around him, of course. But actually, some of that was trying to get himself to full match fitness. And I'm just not sure that Mikel Arteta trusted that he was ready for full match fitness. We saw it in glimpses. He is injury prone. He is a player that in the last few years has had niggles. He's also a player, if you remember, went on loan at Leipzig, got a really bad injury, went to Huddersfield, got a couple of knocks, got through a season at Arsenal where he's one of our best players, and then had a couple of seasons where he's been quite injured. So from the age of about 18 now, 5 years now, he has been injured quite a lot. So that might knock his price down a bit. I think if I was being realistic and being honest with myself, we'd probably struggle to get £40 million for him if you went on the injuries that he's got. And hell, if I'm honest, if he was 28 or 29, you certainly wouldn't be getting that much money for him. So personally, I feel like Emile Smith Rowe has got potential still. There's still a time at 23 years old where he can go on to do great things at a club that he goes to. And he's not a player that I've ever looked at and once and thought, you don't give 110%, you don't look committed, you don't look like you're training, you don't look like you want to be here, you don't look good enough, you've given the ball away loads, you look poor on it. There's never really been any of those questions that I've ever had to answer or had to pose about Emile Smith Rowe. I feel like he's a talented boy. He'll give you 110%. He loves Arsenal. He's Arsenal through and through. He's going to give his all for the club. He's got passion, desire, drive, tenacity. Definitely got very quick feet. Dribbling forward, ball carrying is one of his main skill sets, in my opinion. And I think when he drives on that football, he gets the crowd going. There's flair, there's tenacity, there's drive in a way that you believe something might happen. And he can be very creative. So if you can get that in your first team and consistently start to put out the team with Smith Rowe in it, he could do a great job at Fulham or Palace. He really could. And I think that if either of them were to sign him, they'd be excited by him. I don't think they'd be like, oh, crikey, we've got this battered, dusted player here who can hardly keep fit. I don't think people look at him in that light. I think they look at him in quite the opposite light. So I have to say, I think Emile Smith Rowe is a player that I think, although he might leave Arsenal, I think he'll always be remembered highly. And I think he will be a player that if he does go on to do a move to Fulham or Palace, that I wish him well and I hope he does do well. Now, the other thing we have to mention here is, does Mikel Arteta see him in his future plans? Does he want to sell Emile Smith Rowe? And the reports are suggesting that they actually don't want to sell him. There was a lot of talk previously about Emile Smith Rowe being a part of Arteta's plan still, and that Fabio Vieira might be the one that moves on. There was question marks over his training not long ago. Those reports have now gone quiet. There is no interest in anybody else other than Emile Smith Rowe, which to me proves that he's the one that people are looking at because they know that he's got the most potential, right? Eddie Nketiah, I'm sure, will get a move. Reece Nelson, I'm sure, will get a move. But at the moment, there's a little bit of a fight and a little bit of a war that's going to potentially go on between Fulham and Palace. Now, Emile Smith Rowe's got to have a sit down with Edu and Arteta and see where his plans are. He's got to then look at his options as well. Do I want to go for Fulham or Palace? Now, there's not much of a difference, if I'm honest with you. I think if Palace would have kept hold of their players under Glasner, they've got a very exciting season ahead of them. But with the likes of Guehi and Eze potentially leaving on top of Elise, you really don't know what you're going to get from Crystal Palace. And Fulham, likewise, they're going to miss Paulinho big time. He's a player I rated highly. I don't think there's anybody that can deny the fact that he's been a top player in the last couple of seasons in the Premier League. And Paulinho is also a player that I look at and respect because he's somebody that has stuck with Fulham for a couple of years. And for me, when clubs were sniffing around him, he gave 110% right till the very end. Now he's gone to Bayern Munich. He'll leave a huge hole there. And I don't know that some of the players that Fulham have got can replace them. So it could be interesting for Emile Smith Rowe to look at that potentially. But I'm sure there'll be another couple of clubs that come in. Once we start to reject bids like we are doing at the moment, wouldn't surprise me if West Ham started sniffing around. Wouldn't surprise me if some of the other clubs start sniffing around also. I'm a big fan of Emile Smith Rowe. Always have been. Kind of always will be. And if I'm honest with you, if he did go, I'll be a little bit sad. But I would wish him well. 100%. Let's move on to another midfield target, shall we? It is Mikel Merino. Now, Merino has forged quite the reputation with Real Sociedad. He's blossoming into one of La Liga's most consistent midfielders. That's come from James McCormack as part of Painting the Arsenal. This is why Mikel Merino is a great midfield option for Arsenal, and the 3 reasons why. Now, if you do want to go take a look at that, it's the Pain in the Arsenal on Twitter. It was posted around about 50 minutes ago. He's definitely consistent. He's forward-thinking. He's a technically gifted midfielder, capable of scoring goals. And at 6'2", he would add more physical presence to the Arsenal midfield. That's from Adam Keys. Now, this is something that I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on in midfield. I don't think Mikel Merino is the guy that's going to allow is going to allow Arsenal to. Sorry, I've just realised I've spelt his name wrong. Well done, Saskia Guna. You've pointed it out. There's obviously a typo in my title about his name. Merino. Sorry, I've got Merino. Merino. I like what I see. I've been a fan of him in the Euros, and I do feel like it's just one of the midfield targets that we're looking at. I don't think that people losing their heads need to. This is not going to be the big signing that's coming in at Arsenal. Drum roll, please. £20 million, 28-year-old Merino. Like, come on. Like, it's not going to be. If he comes to Arsenal, which he's favourites to do, he will be part of the midfield and then we will get somebody else in. I've got no doubt about it. I think he will be one that gets added and will be the box-to-box player with Rice, which is something I've said we've needed. And I think we'll go and buy another 6. If the rumours are true about Thomas Partey leaving for Saudi, he'll go. I still think we'll get somebody in as well. And I think we'll use Declan Rice, Merino, Partey, and Jorginho, and the 5th one. We had 5. We have 5 normally, right? So we need to go and get 5 again. And let's be real. We needed a midfielder last season anyway. We needed Xhaka and Rice. We've lost El Neni. And we needed one last year with El Neni. That now means we need 2. We need a 6 and we need an 8. The 8 looks like it could be Mikel Merino. Now, I don't know much about Merino's consistency and how great he is in midfield. I can only go on what people have told me. I don't watch La Liga. I certainly don't watch Real Sociedad. But we were linked with Zubamendi, who is the 6, funny enough. And he definitely is a 6. You saw him last night come on for Rodri. He doesn't move forward. He's one of these deep line players who's passing the ball forward. I feel like we need a 6. I don't know who that 6 is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a Joshua Kimmich. I don't know if it's going to be a Bruno Guimaraes or a Frankie de Jong. I have no idea. At the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be a huge name. But I would be surprised if we only got Merino. I would be. I would be very, very surprised. Because I believe he's a talent, but he's not one that, what do they call it? Is it like the needle movement, pushes the needle, whatever they call it? It doesn't take us across the line for a title, in my opinion. It might help, that's for sure. Absolutely. I've always said, if Declan Rice got an injury, where's our cover? You can't play Partey there. You can't play Jorginho in the 8. So it has to be a Fabio Vieira or a Havertz again, or a Smith Rowe who looks like he's on the move. Don't move the needle. That is exactly what I was trying to get. That is what I was trying to pick. Big up to Jamie, by the way, absolute legend. Make sure you go follow Jamie Phillips Football Chats, please. And also big up to our good friend Igal, absolute legend. Make sure you go to Igal Talks Football. So does he move the needle, as Peppermint Freedom has said? No. But what he does is he gives cover to Declan Rice if he was to get injured. And I think that's what we need. If Declan Rice gets injured at Arsenal in that left 8, we're kind of screwed at the moment. Like, players can play there, but they don't go box to box. We haven't got another box to box midfielder after Declan Rice. And I'm touching wood when I say this to say that, yeah, he's durable. Like, fair play. I'm praying that he doesn't get injured. He's played a lot of football. And we start the pre-season. What is our midfield going to be like? You know? So I feel we can look at this signing and be a Mr. Consistent, a steady Eddie, someone who's going to give us a 7.5 out of 10 most games, a consistent performer, they've said in Real Sociedad. That is what Mikel Merino is. So if he's going to do that for Arsenal, I'm cool with that. If he's going to be the replacement for Granit Xhaka, I'm cool with that. I like his attributes. 6'2", can pass a ball, got physical presence. He's imposing in midfield there. He's not a lightweight player. I remember I said this on the show a few weeks ago, saying that I understood what Arsene Wenger wanted to do plan-wise a few years back, but I didn't really agree that Cazorla, Ramsey, Wilshere and Fabregas were strong enough. We needed some steel in there, and the steel was Song. And then it was Coquelin. Then it was Granit Xhaka. Like, nah, we need some physically imposing players in there. And obviously, you've got Declan Rice now. You've got Thomas Partey now. And if this player is to come in, then Mikel Merino will be exactly the same. He'll come in and give some steel. And that's exactly what is needed at Arsenal Football Club, in my opinion. So I'm a big fan of it. And I like it, but it isn't enough. It isn't enough. And the reason it isn't enough is because Manchester City need to look this summer when that window closes and go, oh, bloody hell, Arsenal have had a really good window. That's worrying. And I don't think that Mikel Merino would worry Manchester City. I don't think Calafiori, if I'm honest, would worry Manchester City to that level. Tommy Setford in goal definitely wouldn't, let me tell you that. And Javi Garcia definitely wouldn't. Sorry, not Javi Garcia. Juan Garcia, isn't it? Certainly wouldn't in goal as well from Espanyol. So we need players that are going to make Man City go, oh dear. Alexander Isak, De Jong, Bruno Guimaraes, Nico Williams, Pedro Neto, those type players. If it's not them, Leroy Sané, you know what I'm saying? Those type of names need to be linked with Arsenal for Manchester City to start going, that's not good. We need a couple of marquee signings. I'm not so sure we're going to get them, but that's kind of what we need. Now, it might not be what we need to get us across the line for definite. You know, we still can do this. But can we do it without us number 9? Can we do it without the midfield the way it is? Can we do it with the defence the way it is? I don't think so. So we need to start moving. We do. And I think we will now. The Copa America has just finished. Yeah. The Euros has just finished. Already today, we've seen rumours flying around of outgoings, incomings, not just at Arsenal, at other clubs as well. I think it's going to start getting busy, guys. I think it's going to start getting busy, people. So start to get excited because the transfer news is going to keep coming. So every time you are on Twitter or your Sky Sports app or a news app or transfer news, there'll be stuff happening now. It will be busy. Keep an eye out for it because it will start getting very busy now that everyone is coming back home. Club football is going to be back. People are starting to play pre-season friendlies. We obviously had one at Boreham Wood, I believe, 2 days ago. Manchester United had one of their first friendlies today. Club football is getting towards it again. Absolutely. So let's see. Big up to everybody in the chat. Make sure you do me a favor and hit the like button. There's 300 people in here. I need you all to hit the like button. We've not even hit 100 likes. So please make sure we click the like button because it does mean a lot. And subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 21k. I really, really want to get there. In fact, I want to get to 30 very, very quickly. And all you guys, I'm sure, are going to help me do that by hitting like and subscribe, which is absolutely free to do. So please make sure that we do that, people. I do appreciate it. Let's talk about Calafiori, shall we? Because, my goodness, have we signed him yet? What are we waiting for, people? Like, let's be real. What are we waiting for? There is absolutely no understanding of how to what am I trying to say? Negotiate so slowly. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever that we are in a position to be negotiating this long with Bologna. They want 50 million. We want to pay 40 million. Just pay the damn money. Just pay the damn money. Like, honestly, it's absolutely crazy that we've still not got this 100% completed. It seems to me that we need some form of add-ons that we're putting in place. There's definitely some form of sell-on price or something that Bologna are talking about, which is why it's taking forever. But personal terms were agreed over a week ago with Calafiori. He wants to come to Arsenal. There's no problems there from what we hear. The problem we've got is Bologna want more money. We're trying to muck around. And we did this, do you remember, with Ben White? Do you remember this? Brighton said, you want Ben White, don't you? We said, yes. Edu said, I'll give you 40 million. They said, no, we want 50. They said, I'll give you 41 million. No, we want 50. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 42 million. Just give him the damn money. What are we trying to do here? Why are we trying to hang about and try and muck around by trying to save 2 or 3 million pounds? This is stupid. This is just absolute utter madness for me. So this is something that we just cannot be doing. I cannot be believing that this is good negotiating skills. Just get him in through the door and let us move on to the next target. Get Calafiori in, get the goalkeeping situation sorted, go and bring in Mikel Merino if that's the guy that you want. That's how we've got to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what we're hanging around for. I have absolutely no idea. But we're trying to scrimp and save again, it seems. And negotiations are ongoing. But all this time that we've wasted trying to get him through the door, let's go and get our next target, man. This is what needs to happen. So, yeah, we'll see. Let's talk about the goalkeeping situation very, very quickly. I've spoken before about this, but I feel like there's a vision at Arsenal now where they look at the goalkeeping scenario and they're not quite happy still. Now, people will think that's crazy, and I'd say fair play, because when I look at it, we have been in a scenario of having 8 goalkeepers now. We've still not decided on our structure of the goalkeeper from 1, 2, and 3. They want a third choice, which we believe is going to be Tommy Setford coming in for £1 million from Ajax, under 20s England international, a guy who is English obviously, but was born over in Amsterdam. Ajax highly rate him. They say he has huge potential. And there is a career path for him at Arsenal, believedly so. So he looks like he's going to sign. Then we've got to find out what we're doing with Aaron Ramsdale. Now, I've said this before, and I will keep saying it. If we do not get anybody bidding anything more than 25 to 30 million pounds, we are rejecting it, and he is not going anywhere. That is exactly what we should be doing. There's no way you can tell me that Aaron Ramsdale is not worth that much money. He absolutely should be. We bought him for 25 million from Sheffield United 2 seasons ago, and since then, he's been in Premier League Team of the Season and in 2 title races. We have to be able to get at least our money back for him. Now, I saw the other day, it was being reported yesterday, I believe, that Southampton were interested in him. I think it might take something like that for a Southampton, a Bournemouth, a Wolves, a Fulham, a Brentford, a West Ham to actually come in and say, do you know what, I want him. So Ramsdale, I think, will end up leaving. What does that mean for the backup goalkeeper? Well, Tommy Setford's not going to be the backup goalkeeper. We're definitely not going to be keeping Cole Hine. Okonkwo's gone to Wrexham, so it means we need to buy somebody. And Juan Garcia is the one from Espanyol that we're looking at. It's not going to cost a hell of a lot of money. He's going to come in as a backup. I think that, to be fair, is probably the best option that we can look at now. I think Mikel Arteta has realised that you can't have 2 number 1 goalkeepers, and he's going to revert back to it. Now, we are going to weaken our goalkeeping area, that's for sure, because Ramsdale is a brilliant number 2. But we're not going to bring somebody in better than Ramsdale to sit on the bench. So we're going to have to look at somebody who is a good, solid number 2 that's happy to fight for his place. It's probably one of the hardest goalkeepers sides, probably one of the hardest signings to make a backup goalkeeper, because you're bringing somebody in who knows they're going to sit on the bench and wait for their turn. That's very, very hard to do. It's hard enough having to try and get a Tottenham replacement for Harry Kane, who's going to come in and sit on the bench, let alone a goalkeeper 100% is probably not going to get injured. So that goalkeeping department could be a lot weaker this coming season, but it's something that I know Arteta is looking at because of the rumours surrounding the 2 or 3 goalkeepers that we've been linked with. Dan Bentley, it looks like that one's done. It's probably not going to happen now. I think we offended Wolves by going in so low with £50,000, which was an embarrassment of a bid. We're now going to get Tommy Setford for closer to £1 million, which is what I think Wolves wanted for Dan Bentley early on. But we are going now for Tommy Setford, who's going to come in as a homegrown player, sit on the bench as third choice, and it would not surprise me if Juan Garcia or somebody like that comes in as the backup goalkeeper, with Raya being number 1. So I think keep our eyes peeled on this one, and let's look at where we're going with our goalkeeping scenario. Once we get that sorted, which are quite easy deals to do, let's be real, the goalkeeper department is sorted. We've got Raya, we've got Garcia, we've got Setford. The defence is probably sorted as well if Calafiori does manage to come in at Arsenal, because we pretty much cover all positions. Now, I know I've said we might potentially need another right-sided centre-back like Mark Guehi or somebody like that. Maybe we don't. If Ben White, Tomiyasu or Timber can cover for Saliba if he was to be out long-term, I don't have any evidence to suggest they can do that. I've seen them play there for a couple of glimpses. But if I'm honest with you, I would rather just go and get another right-sided centre-back. But it is what it is. It looks like Calafiori is going to be the only one. He's going to be our left back. Timber and Tomiyasu can both play there as well. Zinchenko looks like he could be staying at Arsenal now. Jakub Kiwior could be leaving, though. And there's a lot of interest from Italian clubs. Now, if you remember, we bought him from Spezia in Serie A, and he was a player that a lot of people were looking at, saying, yeah, where's he come from? He's been a talent. If you remember, he was in the World Cup, and Lewandowski said for Poland how good and impressed he was with him, how quick he was. I quite like him and think he could still be a good job at Arsenal, but it's not one that I think we absolutely have to keep him here. He's phenomenal. He's going to be the next best. I don't think it's that bad. If we can get anything above 20 million, what we paid for him, I think that's fair because we're bringing in Calafiori and then we move with him. And I think we've then got everything covered. Calafiori can cover for Gabriel as well. And we've spoken about who can cover for Saliba. So then we move into midfield. And I honestly believe that Thomas Partey, Jorginho, and Rice, being the only three there, it looks very vulnerable because Rice is being asked to play both roles. Partey and Jorginho are nowhere near reliable enough in their ages and their injury records to be relying upon for 40 or 50 games a season that we're going to be playing. So we need two players in there now. We've spoken about Merino. We've spoken about who could come in as the six. We've spoken about what we might need, whether we need one or two. And I think we'll get that done. So for me, I'm starting to look now thinking maybe we can get this moving pretty quickly, quicker than perhaps we all thought. The problem we've got is when you do the negotiating skills of Edu and Arteta, it does take a while, or at least it seems to. How are we not signing Calafiori yet? That is just a weird one for me. That should be easy to be done. When a player says, yeah, come on, then come and get me, you just got to go and get him. Just say, what do you want? 42 million euros, was it? Boom. Let's go and do it. 50 million euros, I'll give it to you now. Just go and get it done. Honestly, go and get it done. And then, of course, Mikel Merino, I think at £20 million is a very, very wise move, but we definitely need somebody else in there. And then we've got the big question, guys. We've got the big question. And the big question is, do we sign a winger and a striker, or are we just going to get one, being one winger or one striker? My answer is I think we need both. I think we need both. And the reason I think we need both is because as much as I think Jesus can cover for Saka and Havertz and Jesus can play in the number 9, I don't think I have enough confidence to say that we have a clinical number 9 and that we have adequate cover that is no drop-off to Saka. Now, a player like Leroy Sané, a player like Pedro Neto, those type of players will definitely provide cover for Saka. But does that mean that we can then afford, on top of that, a centre-forward? Now, is that centre-forward going to be in the mould, like Alex says, Forder on Football, Osimhen? Or is it going to be Victor Gyökeres? Is it going to be Ivan Toney? Is it going to be a Boniface or perhaps a Dovbyk or someone that we haven't really spoken about yet? I really can't answer that. I have a feeling in my gut, and it ain't a great one, that we might not get a striker. And I think it would be a really bad piece of business if that doesn't happen. Make sure you go follow Forder on Football, by the way, guys. Him and Lee Judges will be on there over the next couple of days. So make sure you go subscribe to Alex or Forder on Football. The production level is top notch, man. You will not be disappointed. So please make sure you go over there. So for me, I think we've got more chance of getting a winger than we have a striker. I just think we're linked with more wingers. There's something in the back of my mind that tells me that Bayern Munich domino effect might allow one or two of them to be available. Maybe a Serge Gnabry, maybe a Leroy Sané, maybe a Kingsley Coman. Pedro Neto rumours will not go away with links with Spurs and Arsenal. Eze links will not go away with links with Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Tottenham. And I just feel like we've got more chance of getting a wide man in. Now, I don't feel personally that it's an absolute must, but I do feel that we're in a stronger position with cover for Saka. The other thing is, if we're selling Nelson, got to replace him. And I think that means that we're going to get a winger in. We're going to sell Eddie, got to replace him. Can Jesus and Havertz lead the line for Arsenal and get us across the line? I don't think they're clinical enough. Now, scoring goals is not the issue. It's not. But if we don't get a centre forward, there's two things we absolutely must do, in my opinion. The first thing is, if we don't get a striker, we need adequate cover for Saka, whether it be Eze or Pedro Neto, whoever you want. But we need and must sort our left-hand side out, because we are going to need to rely on Martinelli's goals along the Trossards next season. And I honestly believe that the left-hand side has been so muddled that has affected some of the games of the players in that position, and Martinelli is one of them. Zinchenko, I think, is another. His performances are nowhere near what they were last season before last. Now, as much as I'm not a fan of Zinchenko defensively, he's pretty good, but he wasn't really this season, just gone. So we're going to need to look at that Martinelli side and think, who can we play around him? We go and get the number 9, or we don't. If we don't get that number 9, the rest of it has to be inch perfect. He has to have a left 8. If it's Declan Rice, cool, get the 6 in. He has to have a left back. If it's Calafiori, cool. If it's Timber, cool. He has to have that left-sided centre-back, which will be Gabriel. And let's be real, it's the only one that was solid consistently last season that played there. Gabriel was the only part of the left-hand side that didn't move. Because at left back, we had Zinchenko playing there. We had Kivior playing there. We had Tomiyasu playing there. We had Timber playing there. At left centre mid, we had Rice playing there. Havertz started there. Fabio Vieira played there. Smith Rowe played there. Left wing, Martinelli started there. Trossard played there. Jesus played there. Saka, I think, played there once. Havertz went on the left once. Too many changes. There's no consistency or sustainability when you do that. So that's got to change for me. There needs to be an absolute set in stone. When everybody is fit, this is our best team. Now, it's okay to rotate. It's okay not to have a set 11 in your mind, but you kind of need one. It's okay to sit in a press conference and Mikel Arteta be asked, what's your best 11? And he says, I don't have an 11, I've got a squad. Correct answer. But we all know there's a best 11. That's why the numbers on the back are 1 to 11. That's why they're playing there most weekends when they're fit. So Mikel Arteta needs to know what his best 11 is. And I think the following season, coming up, if it's going to be everybody stays put as they are now, I think the only ones that we know definitely are a question mark is one in midfield and one striker. Because we know what the back five is going to be. It's going to be Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, and probably Calafiori or Timber. In the middle, it's going to potentially be Partey, Rice, and Odegaard. If Partey isn't fit to start or he does leave, we're going to have Rice, Odegaard, and there's going to be a position there available. Saka and Martinelli or Trossard on the left, and then up top it's going to be Havertz / a new striker that we bring in. So there's a couple of clear positions that we need. Calafiori is probably going to be one. In the middle, we need one. If it's Merino, then fair play. But I think he's not going to start, in my opinion. It might be that it's Rice, Merino, and Odegaard, but I think it will probably be the 6 we buy, Declan Rice and Odegaard. And then there's obviously the striker situation. But we're going to be on the bench there, right? From last season thinking, okay, last season we had Eddie on the bench. This time it's Havertz or Jesus. Last season we had Nelson. This season it is Eze or whoever we buy. Last season we had a Trossard and a Martinelli. We've still got that option. Last season we had Jorginho waiting there. This season it's Thomas Partey. Last season we had Zinchenko or Kivior on the bench. This season it's Timber. We're upgrading every area. That's what we need. So I feel like when people say Arsenal only need 2 or 3, yeah, in the first 11 we do. But when we've got the players at the moment who are the backups, we need to make sure that Cedric's, El Nenis, Nelson's, Nketiah's, Fabio Vieira's aren't on the bench. They're the ones that need to have gone. Now, I know some of those names have started to go, and I believe the others will continue to. But I think that we need to look at the bench for the first time this season in a long time and go, bloody hell, that's impressive. We can bring on Trossard. We can bring on Havertz. We can bring on Jesus. We can bring on Thomas Partey. We can bring on Urian Timber. We can bring on Tomiyasu. That's good bench. That's a good bench. And that's 6 players, by the way. We've still got options for 3 more or 2 more plus your goalkeeper. So for me, I am excited about this window because I feel like there's no more excuses after this one not to be complete. We have to have that complete 19, 20-man squad. Let's be real, guys. We've been moaning about the Man City have had. So when people will say, not sure we should get him in because what happens to him? Man City don't worry about that. Man City went inside Vardiol after Ake got in Team of the Year, right? Man City go and buy Jack Grealish for 100 million when they had, at the time, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva and Foden. Man City don't worry about that, yeah? Man City have got Julian Alvarez. Man City have got KDB, Foden and Bernardo Silva. No one worries about who plays where and what they do. They just get it on with it. And that's the kind of ruthless position we now have to be in my opinion, to get us across the line to the next level, which I think we can do with the right window. We need a good window. I think we could potentially have a very good window. And I also feel like there needs to be, from this point onwards, a little bit of proactiveness and a little bit of good timing. Because some of these signings of the players we're linked with, real talk, they could be quite easy to get. Don't tell me it's hard to get Tommy Setford through the door, or Juan Garcia, or Calafiori, or if it is Mikel Merino, don't tell me it's hard to get them players. It's not hard to get these players. It really isn't. Like, let's be real. Kat says, nah, Potts, we haven't got a good bench. The players I've just read out are good squad players, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? They're good squad players. I rate Timber. I like Tomiyasu. I like Thomas Partey. I like Trossard. I like Martinelli. I like Havertz and Jesus if they were to be squad players. I don't think that's a bad bench, bro. I don't think that's much far off what Man City are starting to have got on their bench. Mr. Waffle said, Dad, we said the same last season. It's a roundabout. Do you know what? I like this comment a lot. I like this comment a lot because for me, we're going to get a scenario where I feel, how do I put this? We're being kind, we're going to kind of put a question mark to it if we haven't got a good window. Because we're going to look at it and we're going to go, well, haven't we been trying to get 4 or 5 players in for a long time? Haven't we been 3 players short for most of the season? Haven't we been window shuts? We're still too short. And I think Mr. Waffle makes a great point here, because if this is absolutely 100% true and we do allow the window to shut where we've got not enough players in again, I am going to be looking at Edu and Arteta and potentially looking at the Cronkies if the funds aren't there. Because what are we trying to do here? How long is this going to take? We need that bench to be incredibly strong next season. Because if Saliba gets a knock, someone's got to come in. If Saka takes an ACL and Rice isn't there, we've got to get these players in. Now, they're not going to be another Declan Rice or another Saka. And this is what people, I don't think, sometimes understand. I'm not saying go and find another Bukayo Saka and bring him in, or go and buy another Declan Rice and bring him in. They don't exist. But we've got to look at the cover. And we've got to go, if Saka gets injured, is Reece Nelson good enough? We know the answer is no. So that means someone's got to come in. If we don't have a striker and Eddie Nketiah is leading the line, is that good enough for Arsenal, or do we need better? Is there an upgrade needed to Fabio Vieira? Is there an upgrade needed in defence if Saliba was to get a knock? Is there an upgrade needed to Ødegaard if he was to get a knock and we needed a creative midfielder? All of those questions are probably yes. So we've got to go and get them in, haven't we? Do you know what I'm saying? So how many players do we need? Somebody asked me that the other day. They said, do we need 3 or 4? I'd argue we need 5 or 6. A goalkeeper's going to come in, that's 1. A defender's going to come in, that's 2. I think we need 2 midfielders, that's 4. We need a winger and a striker, so that's 6. And that's if you don't believe we need somebody to cover for Ødegaard, which would be a 7th, like a Xavi Simons or a Florian Wirtz or somebody like that coming in to cover for Ødegaard or be competition for Ødegaard. So let's just not beat around the bush and start making out that we need 2 or 3 players, because we don't. We need a really good window. We need a strong window. Now, if we manage to sell the players and we manage to get good fees for them, we add that to the 190 to 200 million budget that we've got, you're starting to look at 300, 350 million that Arsenal can spend this transfer window. And that's when it starts getting exciting. So, outgoings, Ramsdale will go. Tini will go. Tavares has gone. Kivior looks like he's going to go. That's 4 players. Lokonga's gone. That's 5 players gone. Looks like Smith Rowe might be off. That's 6. Looks like Nketiah could be off. That's 7. Looks like Reece Nelson could be off. That's 8. And you're probably looking at a couple of youngsters that might end up leaving as well. So with those 8 players that we're leaving, we're going to get 150 million minimum for that. We need to spend that wisely. We really do. And I believe we can get a striker with that, a winger with that, 2 midfielders with that, defender and a goalkeeper with that. That's where I'm at. Big up to all of you in the chat, by the way. Big up to Kingsley. It says, big up, bro. I love your channel. Well, listen, I love you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. And big up to all of you that are there. Let's check how many likes we've got, man. We've got 365 people watching. That means we must easily have close to 150, which we have got, but we're not quite there, people. I'm 143. Let's make sure we can get that up to 200. All I need now is under 60 of you to hit that like button, which is free. That's all you need to do. While you're there, hit the subscribe button, please. 2 buttons are absolutely free. I keep begging for them. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to shamelessly plug it every single show until we get to 30K. That's what I'm going to be doing. So please make sure that you do hit those 2 buttons. If you do want to join as a member, then you absolutely can do. And it will pay a minimal fee to support the channel for the content. You can do that. But please, at the bare minimum, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Listen, I'm going to be back tomorrow morning when we're talking all things transfer news, and there's already news breaking tonight that's going to be mad. So make sure you catch up this tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. And I'll be back tomorrow also with content throughout the day on Lee Judge's channel, on my channel. So make sure that you've liked and subscribed to both mine and to Lee's channel. And then you'll know exactly when we're on. Hit that notification bell. You'll get a notification to say that I'm live, and then you'll know when the show is, so you don't have to miss a live, and you can get involved in the chat and interact. Big up to all of you for being here. Absolute legends. Love as always. I'll see you in the morning bright and early for 8:30 start. And until then, take care. See you next time. And up the Arsenal. Latest, people.